quickly remember that they are changing my voice. For those of you who are new, they do a lot of immature things like college frats. There's a lot of fraternities and groups who think like them in society. A lot of organizations of nerds, what have you. And they do immature things, and there's a bunch of rich, arrogant people from various races. And in America, it's mostly white Jews and LGBT people, and they have a lot of power around the world. And they're harassing me for not upholding their racist philosophies in their various forms. And sometimes they, are like wolves in sheep's clothes, where they pretend that they're not so bad, but all their philosophies that they sponsor by the corporate state are clearly oppressive philosophies made to make people the slaves of the state. Okay, so they have some kind of fixation and complex in regards to shape, but that doesn't mean that they should violate other people's rights. It's my right to point out that I'm the top martial artist ever, and I'm the idea that Christ is superimposed on. And when we look at this thing, right, we look at the people on the screen, who would you believe about God? Would you believe a bunch of priests and businessmen who look nearly identical? A bunch of nerds, priests, and businessmen look identical? No offense to anybody, okay? I don't care if you're a nerd so much. I don't care how you look so much. That's not what this is about, okay? I'm 42 years old. I'm not in the pinnacle of my life. I don't look as, like the most handsome version of myself ever. And that's okay. That's not what this video is about. It is about the fact that people who are obviously the types of people you shouldn't believe are pretending that they're reliable, and they're pretending that the types of people that you should believe aren't. Okay, it's not about race, not about religion per se, but it has to do with religion. Because if you don't live moral precision in reality, then whether you're a Christian, Muslim, Jew, agnostic, no matter what you are, then your philosophy is not as good as someone who does, right? That's why it's called good and better. Mr. Right, who's righteous, on the right path, versus somebody who's not Mr. Right, who accepts evil, who's on the broad path to destruction. Pretty straightforward, right? I'm sure that it's very hard for any of you to find anyone who would disagree with this. What could they say? Okay. So when we look at the idea of the Black Panther as a character, who's based on something, right? The person who made the Black Panther character said there's African martial artists who go beyond other people, okay? They're more spiritual, they're more athletic, they're more intense, right? They have more heart. That's what the person believed, okay? That's why the character was made. It's a belief that a lot of people have, and we don't have really any strong reason to doubt this belief. So naturally speaking, and there's a lot of people who are jealous of that. Very, very jealous, very petty, and they sabotage people. Me personally, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I like women of every race, and I tend to like females who aren't black more than females who are. Generally speaking, right? Because a lot of black people have been sabotaged unfairly, okay? And if they don't overcome that sabotage and present themselves a certain way, then I'm not attracted to them. So if they aren't already very attractive, or they don't overcome, then I'm not attracted to them. And because they're trying to get me to settle for someone who's not attractive, I'll never date someone who's not attractive. That's my specific case as the top martial artist ever possible. That's my right. And that is judging the situation fairly and by the content of the character, because who you date and who you marry is one thing, and who you're friends with is another. Okay. However, if women were to say the same thing and say, hey, this guy's Christ, and we don't care that he's Christ, but we care how he looks, they'd be in the wrong. Or if they were to look at a race that sabotages blacks and Latinos and certain people more than other types of people, right, and poor white people, what have you, and to say, hey, they're going to date toward the rich oppressor because he's more attractive, they would be wrong. Why? Because the guy is the head of the household, okay? And you should judge by the content of the character. And there's no excuse for dating an oppressor as a female who cannot turn that oppressor into something else because the man is the head of the household. When the female tries to lead in a relationship, it does not work, I assure you. Okay, and if you disagree, put it in the comments. Now, it started to rain right now, so let me make this brief. When we look at the Vince McMahon types, no offense to him or anyone else, when we look at George Bush, when we look at the politicians, the used car salesmen, the corporate guys, the priests that look like these people, when we look at the pretty boys, we know immediately, okay, that they are not as great as the idea of Christ, and they are not as great as the idea of the Black Panther. There's a difference between an average person and a privileged person and the person who's the top martial artist ever possible. Okay? If people don't understand that, they are cheating me. This is not so much a racial issue in some ways it is. But the fact that they are cheating me is a central issue. That I'm more righteous than everyone, and I'm the son of God, and I'm the top martial artist ever possible, and I've been saying this for years, and many people have conceded in various ways, and nobody has a strong argument to the contrary. Okay? That's called a rational and logical argument and a sound conclusion. I have a college degree. I'm the son of 2 doctors. One's a brain surgeon. I have 23 witnesses to people persecuting me. My argument is sound. The government's argument isn't. The trolls are just trolls. So does everyone see now why I'm right here? Now, when it comes to who people want to be, would you rather be a corrupt politician, a corrupt businessman? Would you rather be an average person, just a pretty boy, a privileged person whose race sabotages blacks and Latinos and Arabs and other races to try to look superior? And then tries to get married from there? Hey guys, I'm going to try to get married now without doing the right thing, okay? Or would you rather be the most righteous person ever? Who would you rather your kids look up to? So what kind of a sick person would go way out of their way to try to sabotage me and to prevent people from looking up to me? That is sick. That is disgusting. And I'm not supposed to obey anybody else, and I certainly am not going to obey people who have resorted to that. Thank you very much. So you see how they're changing my voice to try to make it so it sounds corny, so they can make the argument to people who are mildly retarded or something, that magically they think that you should listen to oppressors instead of the one God sent, which is stupid. No matter how I sound, obviously you should listen to me and not anyone else. Okay, and we see that the government is scared of corporate alliances, corporate oppressors, the government staff, the president, Congress, the Supreme Court. And so they're not going to do the right thing. You know, they feel hopelessly outdone by corporations. And they're doing what is called cancel culture, and they're being hypocrites, violating the Constitution. Okay, no matter how you slice it, because of tech, breeding, cheating, and generational ill-gotten gains, it is insane to reproduce. Even if you don't agree with me about that, certainly you know that I'm right. Okay, if you think that I'm wrong, put it in the comments. And I know there's a lot of people watching me, a lot of people monitoring me, so if they don't have a viable counter-argument, I'm going to assume that the government and them and everyone else has committed to the wrong thing, and that's why they're not coming up with a counter-argument. And when I look around, I see everyone doing the wrong thing. When I analyze it carefully, when I look at other people's studies, it all comes up the same. Everyone's doing the wrong thing but me.